Honestly, I'm embarrassed. I haven't read this yet. I'm embarrassed. Pretend that it's not here. This is like an intellectual book. Hello and welcome to this new video. I'm Sylvia and today I'll finally be doing my mid-year book freakout tag. Right? Yes. I have been watching those types of videos for many years now and I'm so excited that I finally am participating and doing my own. So that's exciting. So without further ado, I'm just gonna get into the video because I don't have time. So without further ado, the first prompt, best book you've read so far / your favorite book of 2022. And oh god, I put all my books here but they're all out of order now, so I need to find it. But okay, there it is. So this is really unusual for me because what I'm about to talk about is a non-fiction book, and I typically don't. It's not that I don't love nonfiction, but they're just not my favorite books. But this one, it just really took me by surprise and it's just incredible. You know, this is like an intellectual book. The Power of Myth by Joseph Campbell with Bill Moyers. I loved this book, obviously. Look at all those sticky tabs. Like, look at that. Yeah, that's how much I loved it. It's just incredible. It makes you think a lot about like the meaning of life and society, societal norms, what it means to be a human being, religion, stuff like that. And it's all told through the perspective of myths, basically, and not basically it just talks about life and like how we live as people. He tries to describe how that's related to mythology, I guess. I'm really bad at explaining books, ironically enough, but it's just incredible. This is truly like the book that you need to read. I feel like it's just so thought-provoking in a lot of ways. Like even when you disagree with him, it's like it's making you think on your own view of the world. But honestly, I feel like I agreed with most of what he said, and there were times when like his way of thinking really took me by surprise. And at one point, actually, something he says in the book, I wish I could find the quote, but look at that, like I can't. But he talks about like following your bliss, which is like your passion in life, and he's talking about how when you're following your bliss, it doesn't matter how like if you're doing well in life or if you're not doing well, as long as you're following what you're passionate about, it's gonna be good in a way. Like he talks about how like when he started writing books, he was struggling a lot. He didn't have enough money for food, I think, but he didn't let that deter him because he loved writing books and he wanted to continue down that road. So it's just, I don't know, it made me feel really inspired. I read this in March and like I just remember this book every time I feel demotivated. I'm like, yes, I can do it, you know? So highly recommend it. Definitely my favorite book. I actually have some other books that like were a close answer, I guess. Like I thought about them when I was thinking about what's my favorite book of the year. So one of them is Black Swans by Eve Babbitt. I love Eve Babbitt. This was my second book by her that I read, but I consider her one of my all-time favorite authors now. Like I just love her books, and I'll be talking about some of her other books later on, but yeah, I considered this one. I also considered My Year of Rest and Relaxation. This is like again, this is one of those books that's like hit or miss. People either love it or hate it, but I loved it clearly, so I also considered this is my favorite book. But I feel like in terms of like impact and like longevity, the one book that I've been thinking about the most is definitely The Power of Myth. So yeah. Next is the best sequel you've read so far in 2022. And honestly, when I first read this question, like when I first saw the prompt, I was like, nothing. I couldn't think of anything. But I don't know if it counts. I think it does. But I will say Yona of the Dawn, and like I don't have any specific volume that was my favorite, but like all of them. I mean, I didn't start reading the series this year, like I started last year, but this is about sequels, so it counts, right? So yeah, I will say Yona of the Dawn, like any of the sequels, I just love them. Best manga series in my opinion, definitely my like top 3. It's probably number 1. I just love it. Highly recommend it. Then favorite reread, and again I was a bit like I don't know, because I haven't reread that many books this year, but I've reread 3 books I think, and there's only one of them that is a 5-star book for me, and that's Wicked Fox by Kat Cho. So highly recommend that. also. It's a fantasy. It is YA, I think. This is like really outside of like my usual reading taste. I don't read that many like fantasy YAs anymore. Well, I was gonna say anymore, but like I've never really read that many to begin with. But I just really love it. And again, sticky tabs. I feel like this is just such a feel-good book. It's so nice. I loved reading it the first time. I loved rereading it. It's just comforting. Next, best new release you've read so far. And I have to go with a booktuber's book, actually, and that's On Sun Swallowing by Dakota Warren. I loved this poem. I loved this poetry book. It's poetry and prose. I love everything about it, from the cover to the layout to the design, I don't know, whatever you call that, and the poetry itself, obviously, and her writing is just so good. This is one of those books that like it made me feel so inspired as I was reading it and after I was done reading it, and I just loved it. Like literally as soon as I was done reading it, like I had to go and like write in my journal, which is something that at the time I hadn't done in a while, and like I just felt inspired to write. So love it, highly recommend it, so good. This is also one of my favorites, by the way. Well, I mean, obviously I just said it's best new release. And then for new releases that you want to read, so the first book that I wrote down on that I actually have read because I was planning on making this video like earlier than I actually have. But the first new release that I wanted to read was To Paradise by Hanya Yanagihara, and I have read this. I need my reading journal. Oops, new releases. Oh yeah, then, where is it? Okay, Gallant by V. Schwab. This came out in March, and I haven't read it yet, but this was one of my most anticipated releases of the year, and like I said, I haven't read it, so I need to get on that. Honestly, I'm really bad at reading my most anticipated releases. I feel like I always forget about them, even though I have a spread dedicated to them, but anyway. I will be reading that eventually. I really want to read, oh god, what's it called? Bless the Daughter Raised by a Voice in Her Head. Actually, like, I was interested in this book. I can't remember who was talking about it, but I watched a booktuber who was talking about this book. I think it might have been Chloe, Books with Chloe. But anyway, like, when she started talking about it, I was like, yes, thank you. Like, it sounded amazing. And honestly, the title itself, just 10 out of 10. And then I was just scrolling through Tumblr and I saw a poem. And like as I was reading it, I was like, oh my god, this is amazing, like where is this from? It was this book. So again, just really excited, definitely want to read it. Hopefully I'll get to it soon. And that was also a March release. And then what else? I'm definitely looking forward to La Pavona by Otessa Moshfegh. It just came out a few days ago, I think, so I definitely need to get my hands on that. And also Book of Night by Holly Black. It's her first adult fantasy. My family members are talking, I hope you can hear them. But Book of Night by Holly Black, I'm really looking forward to it. The Folk of Air series is one of my favorite series, so I'm really excited about this, especially because it's an adult fantasy. So hopefully that's going to be even more interesting. And now my dog is walking and making noise. Yes, baby. You can see her. She's tiny. Okay, and then most anticipated to still be released in 2022. I only have one, and it's Long Live the Pumpkin Queen by Shay Earnshaw. She's the author of The Wicked Deep and something else. I've been really wanting to read her books for so long, but honestly, like, two of her books specifically, The Wicked Deep and something with forests, I think, I can't remember, but anyway, they're both to do with witches, and back in the day I loved the idea of reading books about witches, but nowadays I've realized it's not for me. Like that whole I don't know if it's a genre, it's not a genre, but books about witches, like, they tend to not be my favorites, so I don't know if I am gonna read them, but I absolutely love The Nightmare Before Christmas. It's one of my all-time favorite movies. It's one of those movies that like I rewatch constantly because it just makes me happy. So the fact that there's a book dedicated to Sally, who's like the best character, hands down, yes please. Can't wait. Also, I'm so happy they finally released the cover. Like, I don't know how long ago they released it, but I heard about this book when the cover wasn't released yet. So the cover right now is so beautiful. I'm gonna put it up on screen. Like, yes. Yes. Sally sitting on her throne. Like, are you kidding me? Thank you. Next, why am I... No, I don't need my journal. I need my phone. So next... Okay, I saw this from Books and Lala. So Kayla from Books and Lala, she added this prompt. And it's genre you've been reading the most / more than usual. And I'm gonna use the story graph to help me with this because I don't know. So no surprise to me, I've mostly read contemporary books, and the second place is literary. So most of the books I read, and like my favorite books tend to be contemporary literary fiction books. So again, no surprise. What is surprising is that fantasy is third place. Ever since I started reading more consistently, I've noticed it's like high on like my most read genre list. And I always find it surprising because I feel like I don't read that many fantasy books. But then this year it makes sense because I've read a lot of Beyond of the Dawn. And in general, I feel like sometimes I'll read like maybe even like short story collections or stuff like that like maybe has fantastical elements, and like so it counts as fantasy, even though whenever I think of fantasy I think of like high fantasy or like, you know, like the Cruel Prince type books, but I haven't read many of those. Anyway, so yeah, those are the top 3 genres: contemporary, literary, and fantasy. Cool. Biggest disappointment. Okay. Biggest disappointment is definitely The Majesties by Tiffany Tsao. That book had been on my radar for so long. I really wanted to read it. Like, I've been wanting to read it for like a few years, I think. And I finally have. And I was so excited about it because I remember when I read the synopsis years ago, I was excited about that. And then I also love the cover. Like, the cover is so beautiful. So I really had high hopes for that, and they were not met. Honestly, the book as a whole, it wasn't that bad. Like, I talk about it more in my May wrap up, so, you know, go watch that video if you want to know more about it. But there were definitely a lot of flaws in my humble opinion, but it wasn't bad. I think what really made it really bad for me was the plot twist and like the ending. I was just like, why? Like, you just ruined it. So yeah, that sucks. But yeah, that was definitely the most disappointing because I thought I was gonna love it, and then as I was reading it I thought, you know what, like this is good. Like, it wasn't super good, but like it was okay, you know? And then it just flopped. So yeah. And then biggest surprise, and again I think I talk about this book in that same video. Where did it go? Oh, I'm so disorganized. 10 minutes 38 seconds in a Strange World by Elif Shafak. Sorry if I pronounced her name wrong, but yeah, I was not expecting to love this as much as I did. Like, this is truly, again, I think this might be one of my favorites. It's so good. I forgot to put in my sticky tabs again. Anyway, but yeah, honestly, it was one of those books, again, I talk about it in my May wrap up. It was one of those books that, like, I just kept looking at it, you know, I kept finding myself looking at it and thinking like, oh, I need to read that, I need to read that. But honestly, the cover was just never, like, it's not my favorite cover, so I kind of always ignored it. And I always forgot what the synopsis was about as well. And then I read it and I'm shocked. It's so good. This is also one of the books that made me cry this year, so if you want to cry, read it. It's just incredible. I'm not talking about any of the plots in this book, but in this video. But again, if you want to know more about it, just watch that video. But truly just 10 out of 10. And then since we're talking about books that made me cry, another book that made me cry was First They Killed My Father, which I also read in May, and which I also talk about in the wrap-up video, so there you go. But yeah, I cried like a baby reading this. Like, this was probably the one book that made me cry, like, truly, like, bawling my eyes out, you know. And then in March I also read Human Acts by Han Kang, and that one also made me cry. I think I actually have a video of me crying to that, so I might include it if I find that video. But
on his back in a sling, he'd strap you on and proceed to stride around the yard, singing painfully out of tune. Who would have thought that such a sweet, sensitive boy as they would end up scrapping with your middle brother, that now, more than 20 years down the line, they find it so painful even to be in the same room.
yeah. Anyway, And then since we're talking about books that made me cry, let's also talk about books that made me happy. So I kind of mentioned it already, but where did it go? Rereading Gumiho or Wicked Fox made me really happy. I love it. I feel like it's one of those comfort reads at this point. So that's one of them. And then another book that made me happy, Yona of the Dawn. Obviously, again, like all the volumes that I read. I keep doing that. Okay. All the volumes that I've read are just amazing. I love that series. I can't wait for it to... I don't know, it's weird because I can't wait for it to be done just because I want to see how it all wraps up, but also like I wish it could go on forever, kind of, because I never want to let go of these characters. But anyway, but Yona of the Dawn, go read it or watch the anime or both. Do it. Do it! And then also, oh yeah, Given Volume 1, I read it a few days ago, and again, I watched the anime last year, or was it this year? Time. What a magical construct. Yeah, I can't remember if it was this year or last year, but I loved the anime, and I also watched the movie. Both amazing. So I wanted to read the mangas, and so I read Volume 1, and it was incredible. It had me squealing. It's just so good, so wholesome, but also really sad, so just, you know, trigger warnings. Check them out if you need to, but it's amazing though, so I highly recommend it. And it just made me happy reading that. And also, this is just more of like a bonus book. Where is it? Persephone, Hades' Torment. This is a graphic novel. It's not like my favorite book, like Yona of the Dawn, Gumiho, and Given are all like 5-star reads. This is a 4-star read, but it is a really cute book, cute story. So, you know, next. I'm so good at like moving on to the next question. We were like, okay, next. So, what is smooth transitioning? That's what I was thinking of, smooth transitioning. New favorite author. Okay, so first off, I'm gonna cheat for this one. Well, I have several answers. I don't care. Okay, I guess I can just go with like my new favorite author for sure is Otessa Moshfegh. I loved this book and I can't wait to read more from her. And honestly, I don't need to read more from her to think of her as like one of my all-time favorite authors. Like I just know that all her books, or like almost all of her books, are gonna be 5 stars. So I actually am planning to read Death in Her Hands. I'll definitely read it like this summer, I think. Oh, it smells so good. But yeah, it's just, I can't wait. I've heard so many good things about it. Like I said, I'm also looking forward to Lapvona. Honestly, like everybody that I've seen like writing reviews about that book, or, you know, talking about that book, has said that like it's their favorite Otessa Moshfegh, so can't wait. Like I cannot wait for that. But first I'm gonna read this since I already have it. Yeah. And then, let's see. Okay, this is cheating, I guess, but I'm gonna mention it anyway. Elena Ferrante. Technically it's cheating, quote unquote cheating, because I read one of her books last year, so it's not like a new author to me. However, like when I read The Days of Abandonment, like it's really, this book is what cemented her as like one of my favorite authors, I guess. Like I definitely want to read more from her. So, and I'll actually talk about more about that later. But is there anybody else? Yes, there is. Someone else I want to read more from is Bae Sua. She's a Korean author. I think there's more translated books by her. I think so. But, because this is the only one I've seen people talk about, so I don't know. But, originally I gave this a 4.5 star rating. And again, I talk about it in my May wrap-up. But it's one of those books that I keep thinking about. Like, I find myself just thinking about it, thinking about, like, how weird it was, but also like the story and like the themes and everything. I just loved it. I think I'm gonna give it a 5 star. Yeah, I think it's actually one of my favorites, to be honest. So cute, so tiny. But yeah, I just had a good time reading it, and I really want to read more from her, because her writing style was just so weird and bizarre and like so good. So if you like magical realism or surrealism, check her out. And then like an extra, I wouldn't say she's necessarily like one of my all-time favorite authors, but she could potentially become one, and that's Elif Shafak. I love this book so much. I definitely want to read more from her, so hopefully once I do, she will become one of my favorite authors. Who knows? But with Bae Sua as well, like I don't know if I can consider her like my new favorite author, but I love this so much that I definitely want to read more from her. So that's that. There's 2 prompts that I'm just gonna skip because I don't really have answers for that. That's new fictional crush and new favorite character. For new fictional crush, I actually wrote down Hack, which is he's a character in Yon of the Dawn. He's the love interest. I love him, but again, I watched the anime last year. I started reading the manga series last year, so it's not really a new fictional crush. And actually, I did write down a protagonist that I loved. And I feel like, again, this is gonna be like... It's kind of controversial, I suppose, just because of the nature of the book, but the unnamed protagonist from My Year of Rest and Relaxation, I just think she's so memorable. Like, I don't think she's like the most likable character, but I love unlikable characters, so it is what it is. But I just really, like, I feel like she's really memorable as a character. I mean, you know, she tried to sleep for a whole year, like, it's kind of hard to forget about that, you know? So I didn't skip the questions in the end, I guess. Anyway, and then we have most beautiful cover / most beautiful book that you've bought. So that's a good prompt. I don't know. Okay, in terms of most beautiful book that I've bought, I still haven't received it yet. Hopefully I will, because it's been a long time. But The Blind Earthworm in the Labyrinth, I forget who it's by, but I'm gonna put up the cover on the screen. It's so beautiful, like everything about it, just 10 out of 10. It's part of the reason why I even wanted to buy it in the first place, so there you go. I think that's the most beautiful cover. But also this one, like, it's one of the reasons why I bought it as well. I just love covers like these. What else? I also love I Who Have Never Known Men. Do you see a pattern here? Like, yeah. Beautiful women on covers as well. I just love this cover. I even bought like the Canadian edition, you know, and like it's funny because like this was like the definition of playing yourself, I guess, because like I bought this because I hated the other cover, you know, the one with like the mask. I was like, no thanks, like that's so ugly. So I ended up buying this instead, which was obviously a bit pricier since it's a hardback and it was the Canadian version. And then literally, like, I saw a while ago, they came out with, like, I think it's the English paperback cover, and it's so beautiful, and I was just like, really? Like, I couldn't wait. Like, if only I'd waited, I would have had that beautiful edition, but anyway, I love this as well, though. It's so beautiful. And then, I actually really love this cover, Paradise Rot. I don't know if you can see it well, but I don't know, I just like it. It's kind of dark, you know, mushrooms. I like it. I've mentioned it earlier, but On Sun Swallowing, I love the cover as well. I like minimalistic covers, I guess. Like, now that I'm thinking about it, it's like, I just like clean covers, if that makes sense. Anyway, that's it, I guess. Those are my answers. Last but not least, what do you want to read before 2022 ends? Ooh, I want to... Okay. There's so many books that I want to read, but like, I could stay here hours just to talk about those, but... Okay, I guess number 1 would be my 22 5-star predictions. I've already read some of them, but some of the ones I haven't read yet are Second Place by Rachel Cusk. Oh god. Oh fuck me. Oh my god. Beautiful World, Where Are You by Sally Rooney. Cursed Bunny by Bora Chung. The Mars Room by Rachel Kushner. Oh god, where did they go? Oh, I have so many books. Okay. Bad Feminist by Roxane Gay. Honestly, I'm embarrassed that I haven't read this yet. I'm embarrassed. Pretend that it's not here. Embarrassing. Exhalation by Ted Chiang. I started reading this actually. I don't know if you can see that, but I need to continue. I Had That Same Dream Again by Yoru Sumino. Half a Lifelong Romance by Aileen Chang. Sex and Lies by Leila Slimani. The Dragon Republic by R.F. Kuang, which is a sequel to The Poppy War, which I fucking loved, but I haven't, again, embarrassed. I'm really embarrassed. I haven't finished that series. And then also, I have it, but I forgot to take it. The Silence of the Girls by Pat Barker. And, okay, let me just skip it. Let's not be lazy. The Silence of the Girls by Pat Barker. Persuasion and East of Eden. So Persuasion by Jane Austen, East of Eden by John Steinbeck. I've actually started reading that in March and I haven't continued yet. I'm like 30 pages in the book. So much progress. But yeah, that's it. Those are like my 22 5-star predictions. But then since I made that at the end of 2021, like I made that list. Since then I've actually found other books that I think are gonna be 5-star predictions. We have The Lost Daughter by Elena Ferrante. I mean, this is not new. I've had this for years, Coventry. I just really want to get to it. It's a collection of essays by Rachel Cusk. I love Rachel Cusk. She is one of my all-time favorite authors. But I've only read one non-fiction book by her, and that's her memoir, Aftermath. But I loved all her fiction books, or, well, not all of them actually. Anyway, I'm just excited. I want to get to that. Then we have more Eve Babbitt. These are the 3 other books I have by her that I still have to read. So Eve's Hollywood, Sex and Rage, LA Woman. The only Banana Yoshimoto book I have that I haven't read yet, and P. I really need to get to it. I don't know why I haven't read it. I started reading it last year and then I just never continued. So yeah, definitely want to read that before 2022 ends. And then The Family Upstairs. I've had this for years, and just because I want to get it over with, like it's been on my TBR for so long, like, I just want to read it so that I can either unhaul it or, you know, keep it. The Priory of the Orange Tree. I was supposed to read this in June, but I haven't read it, so, and today's the 29th, so probably not gonna happen. It's massive, but I really want to read it before the year ends, because again, I've had this for a few years now, and it's like, I need to know like what it's about. I need to read it. Then we also have Childhood by Tove Ditlevsen. I do also have the other 2 books, which are the sequels. But yeah, again, like it's so tiny, it's so short. Like I don't know why I haven't read this yet. Like I keep thinking about this book and I'm like, yeah, I really want to read it. I really want to read it, and then I never do. So I need to read it. And then this one is just to make my sister happy. How to Make Friends with the Dark. Kathleen Glasgow is one of her favorite authors. I had Girl in Pieces. I loved it. I read it. I loved it. And I actually ended up giving my copy to my sister because it is her favorite book. And then she bought her 2 other books. So this was her 2nd book, and then she came out with a 3rd book. Anyway, I need to read both of those, but this one, like my sister has been telling me to read it for a while, so I need to read it. I already mentioned it earlier, but Death in Our Hands. Definitely want to get to that this year. Terminal Boredom by Izumi Suzuki. I really want to get to it. I've heard great things about this book. And then Acts of Desperation. It's just sad girl book. You know, that's my jam. So need to get to that. And I mean, there's probably a lot more books. I want to read more Junji Ito as well. And yeah, I can't think of any more books. But yeah, those are the ones that I want to prioritize. Honestly, it's a long list, and there's even more than that. I really want to read Boy Parts by Eliza Clark. I just thought about it. A Diary of Blood is also another one. Like I've been wanting to read Boy Parts, especially. It's been a few years. Like I've been wanting to read it, and I still haven't. And it's another one of those books that I started but never finished. So, like, what's up with that? I loved it. By the way, I loved it when I read it. Like when I started reading it, I was really liking it, but I just never continued. I don't really know why. So yeah, that's that. That's my, what's it called again? This was my Meteor book freakout tag. It's such a long name, like I always get confused. Anyway, again, I'm really excited. Hopefully I talked about everything that I wanted to talk about. I feel like I kind of rushed through it. I feel like I just mentioned titles, like book titles, but whatever. That's it. That's my video. I hope you enjoyed. If you have any thoughts on any of these books, let me know in the comments. Peace.